Hey Urjita, I think we should start a podcast.
दो लोगों के साथ तो बात नहीं हो पाती तुमसे और चले आए पॉडकास्ट करने.
Ouch. Nobody got that reference.
It was too niche.
Even the writers would not get the reference.
You know what my opening quote was going to be? I was going to say, Auntie G, get up and listen to Has It Aged Well. Hello and welcome to Has It Aged Well. My name is Abbas. With me in my studio, no, not my studio yet, the studio, is my co-host Urjita Vani.
Hello.
And those two quotes were actually from two very mid to early 2010s romantic comedies starring Imran Khan, Ekk Tu Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad. And to talk about the film with us in the studio is a returning guest. I have to apologize to him a little bit because the last time he was here, I used him as a little bit of a lab rat because that's the only Hollywood film that we've covered on this podcast.
And the fact that you've never done a second one gives me everything I need to know.
And the numbers was kind of... And Urjita was not on that episode. We had Sneh Hill, so this is the first time that...
and it was totally not because I shit on Hollywood movies, okay? ऐसा कोई reason नहीं था. I just wasn't available.
Yeah, you were out making money in Delhi doing shows. But let me introduce him formally. He covers streaming shows, streaming reviews for Film Companion, on Film Companion. And I think he has a very interesting Twitter handle as well, but we'll get to that. So please welcome to Has It Aged Well for a second time, Mr. Suchin Mehrotra.
Thank you for having me. I hope I don't break the podcast this time.
No, not at all. That's why we took the safer option of covering Imran Khan films this time. Suchin, welcome to Has It Aged Well again in the new studio.
No, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to talk about one of my favorite topics, Imran Khan, who I remain a fan of.
Yeah.
And it was very cool to rewatch his films to see if the hype is in our head or they held up. So no, I'm can't wait to talk to you guys about it.
Before we get to the movies, I have to ask you, and I ask everyone who reviews stuff who comes on this show.
We take cash, we take GPay, there's RTGS. It depends.
I thought the payments were already made, guys. How much of content do you watch in a day? Like, what's your screen time like? Because I kid you not, when like Netflix will tweet all episodes of Killer Soup out now, and just below that Suchin will be like, here's a review of all the 8 episodes of Killer Soup. Like, when did you watch this thing? Like, I get you get screeners or whatever, but like, how much of content, what's your screen time like?
It's a good question. The answer is too much. And to the extent where we discussed doing Ekk Tu, and it's still like part of my brain is still trying to remember the movie. It's been days since I've watched it, but then there's so much other stuff you watch and you're like, I hope my brain is not mush. So too much. I mean, for work, the average week might be one movie and 1 or 2 shows, and then there's either stuff you want to watch.
Like a week?
Yeah, on average.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's probably what the average week looks like. And then the stuff you might want to watch for yourself as a human being, stuff to de-stress. So overall, it's a lot, and my brain is literally just mush at this point.
Good to know. But Suchin, we're talking about a very specific time in Hindi cinema.
Yes.
Also because, like we mentioned in our Jaane Tu Ye Jaane Na episode also, there's been a resurgence of Imran Khan films.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason is that because also that chocolate boy image has kind of disappeared from Hindi cinema today. Like, I cannot think of anyone today who fits that scenario of a lover boy.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. But initially we wanted to do Ekk Ekk Tu. You also suggested, why not let's throw in Break Ke Baad along with it also. What was your thinking behind that?
I have fond memories of both films. Ekk Ekk Tu, I just remember how different it was, distinctive. You watch something and you're like, this film is doing something different, and maybe you haven't figured out what it is. You're not thinking critically at that time, and then over time you're like, okay, I think I understand. But Break Ke Baad was just a film I had really, really fond memories of. Just as an audience, I remember it being such a sweet rom-com. Yeah. Also, it's very rare when there's a film you like but nobody else is talking about it.
Right.
And I haven't revisited it. I probably watched it sort of twice ever. And I really wanted to see how it held up. But yeah, it was just like, I was like, because in that time, we had so many of these rom-coms. A lot of them blurred together. And anything that just stuck with you for whatever reason. I had very, very fond memories of the film. And I was very excited to rewatch it.
So, Ekk Ekk Tu, directed by Shakun, Batra.
Yes, his first film.
Break Ke Baad, directed by Danish, Aslam. Urjita, what are your memories of watching these when they came out?
तो मैंने एक में और एक तो देखी थी बिट्स एंड पीसेस में. ब्रेक के बाद मैंने पहली बार कल देखी. एंड I have too many opinions about Break Ke Baad, but I like the film. I really like the film. But But my overall opinion is this, that like you said, that Imran Khan was like a new version of a chocolate boy, and the one that we really enjoyed a lot back then. And I think it could be just my opinion, but I think the reason why that brand didn't last for too long is because in his films, the women were not one-dimensional characters, and it was not just about, hey, I'm a chocolate boy and this life is about me. It was more like, hey, I'm a chocolate boy, this is my love story, and she's also saying something, hey, this is our love story. Like, you know, as opposed to like the brand of Ranbir Kapoor chocolate boys, or like Salman Khan also back when he used to. It used to be like, mera pyar, meri shiddat. Like, you know, it's like, I love you, I will do everything for you, but let the camera be on me, just me.
Where they are the film. I remember
they are the film.
Watching an interview with Imran Khan where he said that's the one thing he doesn't want to do, and it's very interesting, and I'm sure we can think of other films like that, but in both of these cases you could make an almost interesting case for how the women are the protagonists to some degree. They're definitely equal, especially Break Ke Baad. I mean, even if you watch the first scene, he gets a fine, you know, he's in the film, it's sweet, whatever, but her like intro scene is like a full masala, you know, like a swag moment. And even in Ekk Tu, it's Kareena's character who is the bigger presence, you know. I find it might be slightly manic pixie-ish, but he is taking a backseat quite literally in his own narrative. And I thought that's very, very interesting.
But since we're talking about the leading ladies, we'll come to Imran. Let's start there. So, Ekk Tu comes out 2010. This is about, I think, 5 years after Jab We Met. But
very similar to Jab We Met.
I find that Kareena was playing urban version of Geet.
Exactly. That's
right?
exactly what I wrote in my notes also. She's playing the urban version.
Karan Johar produced Ekk Tu, and he's also on record in an interview saying precisely that they wanted to portray a more sort of polished version of Geet. In Break Ke Baad, I kept going back and forth on the Deepika character. There were times where I found her very frustrating, but there were times also where I was totally on her side. I'm like, of course you're putting career before relationship. Why wouldn't you? But if you were to ask me which one of the two I prefer, I'd say Ekk Tu, because even though again it's like a remake of it happened in Vegas, I think it was called the Ashton Kutcher movie. There's also one common thing I thought, that it's also about the parents of these two characters in the film.
I would say the central gimmick premise is it happened in Vegas, but the story is obviously quite different. But
even in Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad, again 90s romance, we were usually shown Amir Baap, Garib Ladki, and the parents were like these overbearing, you know, authoritarian figures. You see the parent characters in this, even in Ekk Tu, even the Imran Khan parents, even though they're supposed to be the controlling ones, they're very sophisticated. They're very they're not the old-fashioned Bauji type of parents, right? So I'm going all over the place here, but the point I'm trying to make is like there's those similar themes running here. And coming back to the Deepika character in Break Ke Baad, I thought in the second half I couldn't really make a through line of why she's making the decisions that she is. But did you guys think, let's take one by one, let's come to Ekk Tu. Shakun Batra's first film, he goes on to make Kapoor and Sons and Gehraiyan, and there's a certain aesthetic we associate with him now. There was also this thing that it is a very Woody Allen-esque look of the film and the feel of the film. I saw Ekk Tu in the theatres. I saw Break Ke Baad also the first time a couple of days ago. The one thing that I thought was radical in Ekk Tu is that the girl and the boy don't end up together.
Yeah.
So my big defense of that film, it's always remembered very loosely as the film where the guy and the girl don't end up together. It's a very sort of easy, simplistic tagline.
Right.
But actually, that's why that film has always had a special place in my heart, because if you look back on it, it wasn't simply a love story with a twist at the end. You know, it was doing something very, very distinctive. And even when you talk about tonally, you know, like, and I think the Imran's parents, you know, Baman Irani and Ratna Pathak Shah, they perfectly capture. There was something when you watch that film, it looked and felt fresh. You know, it's the same but different thing. Yes, it's technically the same dharma world and packaging, but there's something here that's being done differently, and that's because essentially it's a love story it's actually a coming of age story that's wrapped up in a love story.
Right.
But I remember definitely the visuals. It looked so fresh, and I feel like it still does today. You know, there was something about the way it was shot, the way it looked, that it was that colourful world, and there's that very quirky tone, which I think it's nailed purely because of Ratna Pathak Shah and Baman Irani, where they are cartoons. You know, they are these sort of almost, literally they feel slightly animated, where they are like sort of so stuck up and so rich and things like that, but they feel like people, but they also feel like these concepts and these ideas. You know, I literally felt like I was watching a bit of a cartoon in a good way. And there was something very distinctive about that world, where it wasn't just like melodrama, it wasn't like realistic in that sense. And there was something very specific about that world, which is the two things that really stuck, you know, with me when I first watched it.
The thing, so again, Ekk Tu, the one sort of complaint I have against it, and I don't want to be like very critical. I like the film, but it's the thing. So the plot, in a sense, is like these two, boy and girl, they meet in Vegas, and they get drunk and they get married, and they find it out the next day. And again, it's a very by the numbers thing. So you're like, okay, it's one of those stories where by the end of the film, they'll of course fall in love with each other, right? But do you think, and at some point they come back to India, do you think it kind of avoids that thing that if you come back to India and you find out you're married and you're going to end the marriage, there will be way more sufficient backlash? And that's where the Kareena family comes in, where they are really chill, they are really cool. It's the ideal family who's loving and caring and put together. I thought it, like you said, maybe they were trying to avoid the melodrama, so that's why it kind of avoids that idea.
You could be very right that was the aim on the design on a screenplay level, but it worked so well. I never gave it a second thought, because they were trying to show how different the two were. You know, he comes from that very sort of oppressive rich background, and she comes from this very open-minded Christian world. And I never thought twice about it, because you could tell, you know, from her character, when you meet her, you already start imagining what her parents are like, and they are all like that. They're all a bunch of like lovably warm, crazy people. And so, I never thought about that, because I thought they did it well, very in character. Whereas, like, you know, I completely buy that she has this relationship with her family, and they keep talking. They're, you know, very casual.
Exactly, yeah. And they take him in with open arms. What did you think?
Yeah, and also, like, I really liked her family, because we don't get to see, you know, modern family ka portrayal. Like, even
Different
in Break ke baad, they didn't get it right.
You chat on my joke again.
क्या हुआ?
Like, we don't get to see modern family. I was like, different show.
अच्छा, oh, sorry.
Fix in the edit.
धीरे बोला, मुझे सुनाई नहीं दिया.
Because I wasn't confident about my joke. Rightfully
that's
so.
That's what I'm trying to teach you a world lesson over here, Abbas.
Sorry, how you were saying?
But yeah, we don't get to see वो modern family का portrayal अगर Bollywood में दिखाते हैं, तो it's usually कि माँ सिगरेट पी रही है, that's modern. ठीक है. और माँ बेटी दोनों साथ में सिगरेट पी रही है, and you know हर 6 मिनट पे बोल रहे हैं, you know, we are all just fucked up. They have to be. तुम्हारा ऐसे कैसे ट्रॉमा नहीं है, ऐसे कैसे थेरेपिस्ट के पास महीने का 25,000 नहीं जा रहा है तुम्हारा. You know, it's usually that kind of a family, but then यहाँ पे it's like, oh no, you can be modern. लड़की शॉर्ट्स पहन रही है और फैमिली खुश भी है, अरे क्या बात है. So ये usually you don't get to see that a lot in Bollywood, and इसमें I think the family was so good, and it's so true, because I think I'm assuming they lived in Bandra, because it's one of.
I don't know. I assume the same.
I know, because it's one of those Bandra houses that you know. I have friends, Catholic friends in Bandra, and I'm like, इनकी family same ऐसी है. I know this is a very real portrayal of a family, but no, that's.
I know, it's also maybe a subtle commentary on the fact that, again, Kareena's family is not supposed to be as rich financially, because at some point they mentioned that Imran's family lives in Pedder Road, because he asked the cab guy, I think,
and then
Pedder
you
Road,
see the sort of his house.
And you see that, and you're like, the wealthier you are, you'll still be even more stuck up.
But just in terms of her family, you're right, they never underlined. It wasn't like, you know, Deepika smoking a cigar in Break, but they didn't underline the independent woman, that same stereotype. And I also think it's very interesting, because, you know, you fall in love with that family, and they felt very honest, that, you know, it was just so casual, the way they're like embracing Imran as the husband for a day into their lives. And also, I think that entire family arc was, for me, very essential in humanizing Kareena's character, because till that point she is Geet. She's Manic Pixie. She is a concept. She's an idea. You know, small things like, you know, we never see her with friends. You know, is this person even real? But that's suddenly you get a sense of, okay, who she could have been, who she is, how she was brought up, and I thought that was very interesting. But also, just coming back to the rich aspect of it, again, there are so many things that this film did slightly different in the same packaging, which I thought were very interesting. Like, for example, you know, Dharma films, it's that aspirational NRI thing.
Yeah.
They sort of satirize the rich, you know, they sort of almost make fun of rich people as cartoons. There's that entire opera thing. There's Ram Kapoor and his hilarious sort of get an escort, do yoga on the spot thing. Then that entire dinner table scene at the end, they're literally sort of looking down at them, talking about just how repressed they are, and sort of how animated they are. And I thought that was very interesting, that it wasn't fine, everyone's casually in Vegas, so, but it was almost like it wasn't just everyone's rich and happy or whatever. It was that actually, you know, that level of wealth, there was something it was saying about just how difficult or sort of suffocating that life is. And I thought that was very interesting in the Dharma film, to really puncture that.
What I liked is that, again, unlike previous, not just Dharma films, but other Hindi films that showed Indians settled abroad, for whatever reason, they have a lot of agency in that part of the world. Like if it's an Indian, it's the biggest industrialist in
Yeah.
Las Vegas. Like every white person revolves around them. Here it felt like, okay, they may not be the biggest family, but still they have enough influence, and yet you don't feel that they are. It didn't feel fake, their presence in a foreign land.
Because we all have seen like पेरेंट्स ऑफ अदर फ्रेंड्स जो थोड़े हैं ऐसे, मतलब नॉट वो एक्सट्रीम था ऑफ कोर्स, और शायद होगा भी ऐसा रियल लाइफ से, और हमने नहीं देखा, बट मैंने भी देखा है कि पेरेंट्स जस्ट लाइक कि अरे तुझे अवार्ड मिला, तू भी सिखाना इसको, कैसे कर रही है तू. वी हैव ऑल सीन पेरेंट्स लाइक दैट, कह रहे तुम्हारी बेटी गाती है उसको गाने दो ना, फालतू में राइटर क्यों बनाना चाह रही हो, व्हाट इज रॉन्ग. एनीवे, पर्सनल स्टोरीज.
This show is just a medium for us to get over our shortcomings in life.
But what did you guys think of the larger sort of friendship message? Because that's what's so interesting about the film, right? It's exploring friendship as a romantic relationship, and like that's why I actually enjoyed it more the second time I watched it, because once you know the ending, once you know that actually this is a story of two friends, I thought the entire film works so much better. One thing that still annoys me a little bit is, it still ends with him talking about how he has false hope.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't like double down. It's not brave enough to be like, no, we really are
correct,
friends.
Yeah. So I misremembered it. I remembered that version of it, that they part ways amicably and decide to remain friends.
Yeah.
But I was surprised to see that it's still ending with the Imran Khan character still yearning for her and essentially breaking the fourth wall and telling the audience that one day I'll win her over.
Yeah. As if it's too radical. No, the audience can't, like we can't do that. We have to like, you can imagine like that's some note coming from somewhere being like, because that sort of reduced the honesty of a bit.
Exactly, yeah.
My favorites, sorry.
So it's not an open ending. It's essentially the character telling the audience the ending you had imagined. I'm just delaying it a little bit, and maybe that'll happen off screen. You just didn't get to see it.
Yeah, or there's a chance we'll end up together.
Correct.
Which is sort of undoes its own.
So I have a point about this. Okay, so this film, with the whole point that it was trying to make, that Kareena was just trying to be friends with him, but ये लेड़े को समझ नहीं आ रहा है. I think it would have made sense to us like a few years ago कि ये सही है, but now with the whole conversation about breadcrumbing, gaslighting, manipulating, leading on, इतना सारा वो conversation हो रहा है, and we have people who are genuinely leading on because they don't have anyone else. So I feel like the Kareena's character can also kind of fall into the same zone if we are not too careful about it. Because if you think about it,
in what zone?
कि she's just trying to lead him on. Like एक तो वो एक है, it can easily be mistaken for something like that, like maybe like a Gen Z who was born like 10 years ago, I don't know, 10 साल का Gen Z वो अगर ये फिल्म देख रहा है, 15 साल का Gen Z अगर वो ये फिल्म देख रहा है, उसको तो वही लगेगा ना कि यार ये इसका चूतिया काट रही है. I'm just
But isn't that the point, that that he might think that she's leading him on, but then they have that conversation on the steps of the school where she takes him, where she's very clear about the fact that
but after that also they still continue to be friends. So like Kareena, it's like now they are at this place where Kareena very well knows about his feelings for her, and वो इतने strong है कि वो उसके लिए वो विदेश छोड़ के यहाँ पे आए.
But then they also say that she's constantly looking for a girl for me, so she's trying to get me settled. So I think it is a good point, but I do think that especially in the end, I feel like because they've talked about it, and even before that, the reason that didn't strike me as much is I really bought that these are two people who come from very different mindsets and worlds. He comes from a much more sort of, I guess, a black and white world of dating. He was apparently in a relationship, but we never see that and things like that. Whereas she clearly comes from a more flowery, maybe casual relationshipy world. And so that's why, it doesn't even strike her that actually he could be thinking it. That's why that conversation actually works quite well. But no, I was going to say, because for me, when it really works as the origin story of a friendship, my favorite scene, or the scene I end up thinking about the most, ironically, is when she pushes him to go out with his ex. That entire sort of dinner, that bathroom sequence. He comes back having this insane date, and then they just sit and debrief, and there was such a warm, tender friendship moment, and that for me was a scene where I felt their friendship more than ever before, without the film trying to play with us or like predicting that we are saying will they, won't they, or whatever. And that's when it really worked for me. And I was like, that's the scene that really captures who they were, and that's why I feel like on the second time, once you from the beginning you're not playing with your expectations. Like, I know that these people are meant to be friends, and it sort of flows a lot better that way.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a deeper existential question?
Yeah.
Do you think exes can be friends?
It's tricky.
I don't have an ex really, so I don't know.
That means you've not been friends with your exes.
नहीं है ही, मतलब एक 16 साल की
okay.
उम्र में था, एक तो उससे तो बात ही नहीं की बाद में.
Okay.
But after that I have never really dated
Got it.
anyone.
Okay.
But of course I talking stages के अगर हम बात करें तो if the talking stage stop, if basically I have never been friends with anybody who I went out with at some point. I
Okay.
am not friends with anybody like that. So I think maybe
That just sounded very sad. Sorry.
नहीं अगर नहीं
No,
बात
it's
नहीं
okay.
बनी तो
No,
फालतू
this is
में
the way
बात
you
क्यों
said I am
करनी
not
है.
friends with anybody. I was like, what? But
नहीं
it's okay.
लाइक फालतू में बात क्यों करनी है, अगर नहीं बात नहीं बनी तो मैं नहीं करी. But that is
Okay.
just for talking stages. I am not sure about.
That sounds
Actually,
healthy.
yeah.
I mean, the larger
Yeah.
scheme of things, that's probably better. You know,
Yeah.
like having like separating those two. I think for me, it really depends on the context. You know, like, you know, is it people who like you met on an app and then you try and be friends, or were you friends before? Also, like, have you done all the boring things that you're supposed to do, like after breakup? You know, make sure you have enough time apart to see
Correct.
like that's only because too many people try and jump that ship
Correct.
in an
Yeah,
instant,
yeah,
and then that's
yeah.
just going to lead to disaster.
Yeah.
Which is all of the second half of Breaking Bad. But the point is that so context really matters, and like, are two people being healthy? Like, is everyone on the same page? Are you communicating enough?
Yeah.
So just a lot of ifs and buts.
Yeah, it really depends on how long you have been together. मतलब if it is a friendship that has lasted for an entire generation, 10 साल, then it will be very difficult for you to just cut them off because they were a part of your life. You can't cut somebody off like that. But अगर 1-2 साल हुआ तो यार मार गोली, क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
Also, even if you put the concept of moving on a graph,
Yeah.
right? Even if you quantify it, the chances of both people will not be following the same. You know,
Correct,
the timelines
yeah,
are
yeah,
different.
yeah.
So just chaotic.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Are you guys friends with your exes?
So I was coming to that. Not the.
Let's talk about
you
your
are coming
romantic.
to that. Oh,
No,
oh.
I was saying
Ekk Tu,
that
my ass.
I've actually.
What are we really talking about?
This is still a movie podcast, guys. Just a slight detour. No, I was coming to the idea that I have friends. I've seen both those things. People who've been together for 10 years, and then after they broke up, they completely cut each other off. They don't even talk with each other. Okay. And I've had friends who were married for a long period of time, divorced, are still best friends, and also people who were together for a brief amount of time, and then after the breakup are still friends. So I think that still happens. I am friends with one of my exes that I used to go out with. None of the others.
So you think it's possible?
But
It is possible,
I
yes.
think it is possible if the only reason why your relationship didn't work out is कि sex अच्छा नहीं है. तो I think.
Hey man, let's not get that personal, okay, Urjita.
कि मतलब बाकी सब अच्छा है, but यार ये important life का चीज ये नहीं हो रहा है तो
This is
okay.
After Dark podcast.
You've got printed out notes, Suchin. What are you going to talk about?
I have too many thoughts on this film, which I'm trying to like hold on to. No, I wanted to ask you guys what you thought of Imran Khan, because that's one of the reasons we're doing this, and that's like the big question, right? Because I mean, there is something about him which, like, so many of us are still fans of him. There's that presence he had. You talked about the chocolate boy thing. Also, I say this as a fan, there are clear limitations to
Absolutely.
him as an actor, you know. And that's what I found very interesting about both these films, more so Ekk Tu, Ekk Tu, where which Shakun Batra actually does this very well. He really capitalized on it. You know, Imran has that warmth. I think it's also a credit to him that, you know, you can watch a film and not be wowed by his performance, but also still feel quite, you know, grateful to be in that presence. And this, like, the idea of watching another Imran Khan film is an appealing thought. It's very pleasant and breezy, but Shakun does this very well. He capitalizes on, sort of, he shapes the character around the actor. And so in this film, it worked very well because, you know, his entire character is that, there's that sort of sense of blankness and repression and awkwardness and stiffness. And I thought that worked very, very well, where you see him sort of loosen up as it goes. And fine, there are sort of certain scenes where it feels awkward, but I thought he did that really well, where this character really fit Imran well. Yeah. Which I thought he did a good job of. But yeah, what did you guys think of just Imran in the film?
Imran Khan, there's just something about Imran Khan that makes you feel like he is not here to take up space. In fact, he is here to fill in the space that you have already created. And there's just something, you know how they say ki, you know, if a singer is very good, it means उनका दिल भी साफ होगा, because जो दिल में जो साफ है वो तुम्हारे आवाज में भी आ रहा है. That is also true for actors. If you are really
one
pure,
comment about Abhijit says otherwise though.
Right? That is also true for actors, right? Like they say that if you're really pure as a person, it shows in your eyes, and which ultimately translates on screen, which is why people love Shah Rukh so much. So that is something about Imran that I have really loved his eyes, man. I think his eyes are underrated. Not many people talk about them, like the way he just man, I really like his acting. I just want to say I really like his acting. Like he might not be good in a Once Upon a Time in Mumbai Dobara. He might not be good in kidnap.
That was a strong reaction. I was just giving you a reference. Bloody hell.
I just remembered कि नहीं, but for these films it felt like कि ये इसी का real life persona है, and I think ऐसे इतने कम लोग देखे हमने life में कि I was like, you know what, this is very good.
But no, I think you said it perfectly. You know, there is something about Imran, you know, where like, you know, we could talk about ages, about certain scenes that don't work or, you know, whatever, but there is something about that presence, that willingness to not be the center of attention, especially in the romantic context, sort of letting the women be the hero of the film, and he's just there, which ironically is his character in Break Ke Baad does very well. But, you know, there is something about that very comfortable presence.
Also,
Can I take a dig at what I think that is?
Yeah.
So, I think he has this weird thing. Firstly, I think he's like, even a small thing like his language and diction is quite good, both in Hindi and in English, right? So there is this thing where we as people who've grown up in cities who talk in English, we buy him as one of us. You know, it's that thing of you want to take him to the club, but you want to take him to meet your parents, right?
Yeah.
So in Break Ke Baad, there are a couple of scenes where he's wearing a Pathan suit in a shadi, and he doesn't seem out of place, right? He's as out of place partying on a beach in Australia as he is dancing in a shadi in India, right? So there is certain pleasantness which I think harkens back to Aamir's early days in Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak and Dil, where there's this really sweet, innocent boy who we want to root for, right? And he had that going for him. I agree that there are points where, like, the one scene that sticks out at me is in Ekk Tu Ekk Tu, when he finds out that he's actually married someone last night, and as an outburst, he comes out of a lift and has that outburst. I was a very badly done scene. Like, you don't buy into that anger. But then there are other scenes where my heart goes out to him, like some of the scenes towards the end of Ekk Ekk Tu, where he realizes that he's not going to get the girl, where I'm like, I'm totally buying this guy. So there's something very watchable about him, which I think is a very important thing in an actor.
He also seems, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, he seemed very lost, and these films are about trying to find yourself.
Of course,
you know? There was a sense of like he himself is trying to figure it all out, you know. His characters might be doing the same thing. I don't know if it was acting, I don't know if it was his place in the industry. He seemed very much like, I'm really just trying to figure this out. But no, I completely agree. You know, there are always those scenes. I remember there was one scene with Kareena when, you know, that staircase scene, there's something there where there was something that felt clunky, I think, afterward, when he's storming off, and rage, when he was trying to be angry, didn't come off cleanly. But then I was also very aware then how much he nailed the dining table scene, which I love, the final scene. I really felt it, you know. Then he really, like, I really felt that outburst. I really felt that, like, I'm trying to hold it in, but I can't. I'm trying to find that. And I really felt he landed the emotional beats, and that's the scene you want to land. And it was very well done.
Also, you liked his eyes. I am more of a Imran's lips, guys. I think I'm more into his lips.
I haven't
Is
noticed
there a body part, Suchin, that you would...
I mean, his left elbow does things to me. I've not actually noticed any Imran Khan. Like, just, can I say the overall experience? Like,
but also in both of these films, okay, Break Ke Baad and Ekk Tu. Ekk Tu not so much, more Break Ke Baad. I think I found Deepika's character I found myself judging her a lot throughout the course of the film.
Yeah, so did I.
But in my head, I was like, is this the internal misogyny in me judging her? Or is it just an actual person who is judging another person? And then I realized that the reason why I found her character slightly uncomfortable is because we are not used to seeing flawed female protagonists in Bollywood films. And even if they are flawed, there always has to be a reason why they are like that. Like Khoon Bari Maang. कि इसके साथ इतना injustice हुआ इसलिए ये murder करिए तो चलता है, because everybody is at by the end everybody is rooting for her कि मार उसको मगरमच्छ के मुंह में डाल दे, you know. But it takes a lot for you to, you know, root for a flawed female protagonist, I feel. And that's why with Deepika I was just constantly thinking from just my perspective कि यार मैं तो ऐसा ना करूँ, but ठीक है, तेरे जैसे सब लोग नहीं रहते ना. It is completely okay for somebody to be confused about who they want and what they want. And अभी तो anxious avoidant attachment styles भी थोड़ा बहुत हमने पढ़ लिया. So I'm like, okay, she could be like that. So
even you mentioned that her arc and like how unlikable. Sorry, just last thing I just want to say about Ekk Tu, and then I think we should like dive into Break Ke Baad. The other thing I found really interesting is if you think of any coming of age arc, right? The wake up said, the tamasha, whatever, the graph of it, they have to end up as a successful massive something, right? In Ekk Tu, if you look at Imran's arc, he ends up in the same. Nothing changes.
Right.
He's just slightly happier, slightly less complicated, and there's something quite wonderful about that. You know that he's not. He hasn't started his own restaurant. Nothing has changed, but he's just slightly lighter, and I thought that was quite wonderful. No, but with Deepika in Break Ke Baad, I agree, and I think to both your points, that is the writing. There was something quite uneven about the character. I think even the film was trying to do a lot, but it didn't nail it.
Yeah.
Like. It's only later that you find out what it's trying to say about her origins. Her dad is left, so she's also prone to running away. And you're really like inferring, but not because the film is very clear as to like, okay, why is she the way she is? Okay, fine, I get it that she's very impulsive. She causes hurt to herself and other people, and then later learns. So I was like, okay, I largely get what you're going for, but the film is also very uneven on her character. But yeah, I really like the fact that she really felt like the bigger presence in the film. He again took a back step. I also like that for once. We've seen her be the mom so many times. It's all normally Ranbir who's trying to find himself, and she's like the man-child, and he has to. And for once, she was the kid.
She literally says the
That's the
dialogue.
thing,
कि मैं उड़ना चाहती हूँ, मैं बाहर जाना चाहती हूँ. I was like, yo.
Bunny.
Bunny.
Yeah. And I thought that was quite cool.
Essentially, that's the... So I actually kept asking myself in Break Ke Baad, how old are these characters supposed to be, right? Because they're both supposedly in college. So I'm assuming it's early 20s. So then her... what I said in the beginning of this podcast, where I found her character frustrating a couple of times, I essentially blamed it on the unpredictability of youth. That when you're at that age, you yourself are... You have so many choices to make in front of you that you keep flipping between many choices, and you do act weird at times. So I kind of put it there. But I wanted to ask a question. So, and this is like connecting both Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad. So you mentioned the Manic Pixie Dream Girl aspect of the Kareena character in Ekk Tu. Firstly, like just if you could like tell me about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, and how does that contrast to the Deepika character in Break Ke Baad in your idea?
Also, can we just explain the meaning of Manic Pixie Dream Girl just in case people don't know?
Geet.
I know somebody who's happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, bubbly is the biggest adjective with a capital B. Someone who just feels like a concept. Someone who rocks up just to fix the guy.
Yeah.
It's
essentially
like fairy godmother kind of.
A female character written by a screenwriter.
Yeah.
Who you're like, oh, she will fix me.
A male screenwriter.
Absolutely
male.
So he's like, oh, she can fix me.
Yeah.
So, and you said that when in Ekk Tu, when the family is introduced, that's where the Manic Pixie Dream Girl aspect of it kind of took a backseat for you.
Yeah. She felt slightly more human to me. Yeah.
So is the Deepika character in Break Ke Baad the anti-Kareena character from Ekk Tu?
It's a good question for me. I didn't feel that. I mean, the only time I felt really stereotypical, because I even if the character felt uneven, there was an honesty there. I felt that I really got a sense of who she was. If anything, I felt
Which one are you talking about?
Sorry, Deepika in Break Ke Baad.
Okay.
I really got a sense of who she was. If anything, I felt that the writers were trying to then pad up Imran's character to give him more conflict.
Yeah.
Even if the film isn't the most, even the only time I really felt, okay, stereotype is the smoking. Her entry monologue.
Intro.
Okay, now
which is why when you brought up the mother-daughter smoking thing, I was like, that's how she's introduced in Break Ke Baad.
How do you do like a
even the dialogue
not
is
even a
pretty
cigarette,
good.
a cigar, guys.
Yeah.
She's that badass.
Yeah, and even then, like the dialogue is so good because the girl is like जो जिसकी शादी हो रही है, the bride is like कि अरे सिगरेट पीना लड़कियों के लिए बुरा होता है. Really, I thought सबके लिए बुरा होता है. Which is so well done, very nice.
I love the dialogue. I mean, I think most of the issues I had sort of appear in the second half, but I found myself enjoying the first half so much. Just the energy, the humor, a rom-com thing with like that level of banter, the dialogue, it worked so well, and I was like, I found myself enjoying the humor of it. It's one of those, I really like the little things so much. Those little things you give these characters to make them feel human. The pizza thing, is it Shah Rukh and Sunita? Is that what they have nicknames for each other?
Shah Rukh and Sunita.
Those little character details.
You call them gelato, right?
Gulati, gelato.
Yeah.
These small things which really start to make these characters feel slightly human, and that's what really like makes you feel their connection, their history, and like it's one of those ones where like there are some macro larger issues of like why is this happening in this way, but the smaller things really like struck me. Even like the street kids who keep teasing them, those small things just felt very lived in. Which I
there was also this one scene where Imran Khan is fighting with her on the phone. One street kid comes and realizes something is wrong, so he leaves without disturbing him.
But one thing that was very cool about Break Ke Baad is when was the last time we've seen love stories, we've seen Boy Meets Girl, when's the last time a love story started with we've been together 10 years, you know? It's a love story of within a relationship story. It's a love story about people already in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very, very interesting. You feel their history and then the conflicts they face. But then I think the ultimate scary question of this film is, does it work better as a breakup movie rather than a makeup movie? Because it made a very good case till like 80% through the film that they broke up, and you can see why they were together, why they broke up, and actually their lives separately, you know, it's that La La Land thing. They would thrive separately. And then obviously, you know, like Bollywood movies, so they have to throw them together. And then, I mean, I didn't like the thought, but I was like, you know, maybe that is the better movie.
You stopped the film with 20 minutes to go, and that's a good break.
So I'll tell you where the movie stopped working for me. Not the movie, Deepika's character, okay? I completely bought her कि you know ये flawed है, ठीक है, इसको उसका past है, baggage है, उसकी वजह से she is not able to commit to him. But then I realized that she's still in love with him the moment उसको realize होता है कि fuck इसकी शादी हो रही है, अब ये permanently चला जाएगा. मतलब, and also like even in the moments where she's missing him, it is only when अरे उसने मुझे क्यों नहीं बताया ये, अरे आई नीड हिम यार, आई नीड हिम, कुछ तो वो सीन्स में दिखाना चाहिए अबाउट यू नो हाउ शी इज स्टिल थिंकिंग अबाउट हिम, हाउ शी स्टिल रिमेंबर्स हिम.
But she also does that thing in the end, right, where she's proposing to him.
Which I love that.
And she's saying the things you have associated with them. जब तुम्हारे बाल उड़ते हैं तो ये होता है, जब ये होता है. Those are all the lines we've all heard the hero character say for so many, like the Shah Rukh Khan or Amir Khan or in romantic comedies. Yeah, they kind of flipped it. And I was just thinking that when they wrote this, they thought they were being so progressive, guys.
But for me, the problematic stuff started a little earlier. So till the first half, till the point where maybe she's in Australia and he's not. What I really like, I really got a sense of these people. I really like the characters. I love the energy.
Yes.
And I thought the characters were like weirdly like layered more than I would have expected. You know, I really got a sense of who they are. And there's this Siddharth Anand interview that he gave to Film Companion when Pathaan came out, where he talked about why he stopped making love stories. And he said that I can't think of any romantic
90%
conflicts.
of Indians haven't been in love, and
It's 99. Most Indians haven't met other Indians. You know, that's the problem. Yeah, we're all. But no, he said that I can't think of any romantic conflict. You know, like I can't think of anything to. And then ever since then, I keep thinking about love stories. Like, what is a conflict? And I thought this film had a very interesting conflict where very rarely do you, at least till a point in the film, I really understood both of their perspectives. I understood that she needed to fly and, you know, discover herself and do all these things. I can see where she was coming from and she was being a bit selfish, but like she also needed to be for herself. And I could see that he didn't have anything to his life apart from her. And he was more stable and he was more sure, but at the same time, he didn't have that level of ambition. And I really felt for both of them, and I saw it from their perspective. The thing that really was the big problematic leap for me is when he goes to Australia, she says, I'm breaking up with you. And he says, no. You know, and I was like, okay, fine, it's Imran Khan, he's very soft, he's very gentle, the film also takes it, but I was like, there's something very, just, you know.
You don't get to say no if someone else is breaking up with you.
And I understood, it's like, it's understandable, and I can see, like, you can understand the logic, but it's also very, like troubling, where again, you can see his perspective that, you know, she just doesn't know, and I've always said I'll fight for the relationship, and she's just going through one of her phases. So I know he had a very sincere intent, but at the same time, it was like, no, but, you know, it's that whole no means no. She said, like, leave. Don't just like move in next door.
Okay, we have to take a break. We still have a lot more to talk about break ke baad, and I mean literally break ke baad. Get it, guys? And Ekk Tu, Ekk Tu.
Look at Abbas making it sound so casual, as if he didn't think about it 15 minutes ago. मैं ऐसे break लूँगा.
Yeah, I'm like, when will they stop speaking so I can crack
He woke up in the morning saying, I can't wait to fucking crack that.
But I want to talk about the music. I want to talk about some of the supporting cast who I think are great in both these films, and we'll give our verdict on whether these two films have aged well or not. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like the video and share it with anyone who you think will enjoy it. Subscribe to the IVM Pop channel. If you're listening to us on an audio platform, please rate and review us wherever you can. It helps us reach more people. We'll see you break ke baad, guys.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcasts Network. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by actor Shehzad Khan, best known as Bhalla from the film Andaz Apna Apna. From his legendary father Ajit's disapproval of his acting career, to his breakthrough role in an Amir Khan film, to the secrets of the Ramsey brothers, Shehzad spills it all. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam Gupta is joined by Marzban Irani, CIO Fixed Income LIC Mutual Fund. Together, they dive into the intricacies of debt funds, explore the nuances of interest rate cycles, and provide valuable insights to help craft a strategic approach to your debt fund allocations. Folks, if you like our shows, spread the word, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Omidyar Network India, IDFC First Bank, and ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
And we're back on As It Aged Well. We're talking about Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad, an Imran Khan special, if you will. And to talk about them, I have Urjita and Suchin with me. I just wanted to mention, Break Ke Baad, produced by Kunal Kohli, and the early portions of the film have this sort of cinephilia built in because they're bonding over movies. It starts with Mr. India, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, Jo Jita Wohi Sikandar. And as like, because Kunal Kohli used to be a movie reviewer and he was coming off of Hum Tum, so he has... Also, I love the opening credits for Break Ke Baad.
Yeah.
They're very well done.
Yes.
The in camera, the in film, it's very sweet.
I want to talk about supporting cast. So Sharmila Tagore and Lilette Dubey in Break Ke Baad, they are surprisingly... again, they don't play the typical mother character, right? Sharmila Tagore is so comfortable with her daughter, she's calling him by first name, and Lilette plays the bua, not the mother character, right? And similarly, we've spoken about the Ekk Tu family. Why do you think those two characters were important here, the Sharmila Tagore character and the Lilette Dubey character, especially the Lilette Dubey character, because Sharmila Tagore, you can kind of sense where she's coming from. Just your thoughts about that.
So, for me, the Sharmila Tagore character didn't... It was more the idea. I thought it was so interesting to see Deepika wanting to be an actress, Alia wanting to be an actress, and her mom is an actress. That's a very interesting thread.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen something like that necessarily. It's not your go-to profession to give an actress in a love story. So I thought that whole thread was interesting, but there was more than that, more than those ideas of, the mom not wanting her to repeat the same mistakes. I didn't really... It was a really cool idea more than like me really feeling the presence of that relationship and how warm that was. But the Lilette Dubey character, that I felt more, because it's that very Bua's my friend.
Friendly,
Also, is his mom dead? I feel like his mom is dead in the film.
No, it's
So
there.
you see his father dancing with a woman in the... So, and the actress who plays her, I'm not remembering her name, but she's a pretty established actress.
Yeah.
Like she's
But they never...
So I think it either got cut out on the editing floor or
his
just
mom died, we never talk about it.
something happened.
The same way, like, why is he... I mean, I guess Bua is because that's his friend, so fair enough. But no, that character I enjoyed a lot more. But they really... It's only in the last scene they go all in where she's like, I've been divorced 3 times. And I was like, whoa, that's...
that's when that thing happened. I was like, okay, this is why they cast Lilette Dubey, because they had to do this one big scene.
She's like, I will not smoke again because I'm an independent woman. But no, I thought they were very interesting. I mean, there's some wider issues I have with these typical Hindi rom-coms where nobody's allowed to have friends, And ironically, in both films, Imran's character, it makes sense he doesn't have a friend. That's his whole deal. But why doesn't Kareena in Ekk Tu have any friends, in Vegas? I mean, she says that, I can't stay anywhere, but it's very, and it's there. I mean, even Rocky Rani, Rani doesn't have friends. So I keep thinking about that. So even, but I mean, again, Deepika has a line in Break Ke Baad where she says, you're my only friend. But I guess to use that device of who do I turn to when things going to hell, they have these parents characters come in, but it's interesting. It is.
So that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Ekk Tu is more locked into these two characters, right? Break Ke Baad has that central segment of the film where it starts to become like friends. You have the Yudhishthir character, the Shahana Goswami, and they're living in the same house, running a business. For a brief while, it's like, okay, this is like a sitcom, it's like a bunch of friends trying to make it, and the Yudhishthir character, has not aged well because he's essentially doing the Barney Stinson, Joey Tribbiani thing where, hey, I'll have to sleep with women.
Thank you. कोई ऐसे बात नहीं करता.
So the lines have definitely not, but I really enjoyed watching him. He had one of those really silly, some of the banter he has with his sister, where he's just like, some of them was really, and I thought that's a very easy to get wrong role. When someone's just a cartoon, they say something funny, you don't think about it twice. But I thought he was having so much fun with the role that apart from the obvious that hasn't aged well stuff, he actually had presence, which I quite liked. That he actually was funny.
I thought Shahana Goswami was really good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Again, this comes, I think, after a few years after Rock On, and she's someone who I would have liked to see a lot more in films. But
and it's a very different zone of role, and it's a kind of role.
Do you think her character was into Imran in the movie?
Of course.
Yeah. That's implied, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all.
Okay.
Fill me in.
What?
Wasn't she? Weren't they just like trying to egg them to be together?
No.
So it's one of those things where I have feelings for you, but you belong with the other.
The two things that I really thought would have been a very interesting film, which it skirts over, which is they never, when they're like, okay, we're moving on, and sort of giving each other false hope in some weird way, but she's giving him false hope. They never dare to play with the actual reality of that conflict, which is what if one of them is moving on, what if one of them is dating somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there is that one character who approaches Deepika and is like, why don't you come over, stay with my friends, who it seems like it's going to go towards that, but then he's just disposed of.
But that's, again, when that whole thing happens, that is, again, very early on where she still considers herself to be in some sort of relationship.
Yeah.
But isn't that one of the primary conflicts of when two people have broken up and it's been a few months, which is that fear, or one of them wanting to move on or not wanting to move on, or trying, and you seeing them with someone else, that was scattered over. And also, I'm very glad they did it, that they jump a year, because that, to me, that's the one thing that makes that ending saleable, that actually they could have grown apart and they've actually grown up as people, and that's why you kind of buy it. But then sometimes I'm like, well, I would have loved to see that story, where, like, what is that like for them to, like, I guess more for, but they both needed to grow up. But both, we get to see it in a montage. But
we only get to see the Imran montage where he's going on to meet arranged marriage meetings, right? We don't. Do we get to see what's happening with Deepika's life at this point? We don't.
She goes back to Sharmila. And she says, "Look, I didn't take the role."
Correct. Yeah.
And then she goes back to the goalpost and then takes the role. I guess the contract was waiting for her. I was wondering about that.
I mean, those things, like, how can Imran fly just like that to Australia? Also get a job there.
Also 6. He did every job on the book. And there's one really funny scene where Shahana Goswami says, "You look like shit," and I was like, "He doesn't.
He doesn't.
He looks
He's
great.
really
He looks like
good.
the after, not the before." And I like $600 for 6 months of that. That's
Yeah.
the place you get. But then that's the territory you come with.
I have a question here. Okay, do you think Imran would have wanted her despite knowing that she has fucked around over there?
Good question.
You mean in the year?
Not in the year.
In
that
the break.
1 year. In the वो जब भी आता है उसको लगता है कि she slept with him.
Would he still
Would
want her
he-
if he knew she slept with
Are you
people?
talking about that guy or generally?
That guy that guy or other.
I mean,
other
that guy, I
person
feel like the
also.
film kind of, it doesn't get into detail because clearly it doesn't want to, but it does, he even says, "I don't remember." She says, "I don't remember." And Imran clearly was there for all that. So that's not news to him. He's aware of that. But generally, it's a good question because that's the central conflict, right? Like, he keeps saying, because he's a simple-minded guy, like, what is a break? Like, what are the rules? And if she had, I mean, then she would be crossing a line because she never made it
That's
clear.
the line the film, I think, consciously chooses to
Yeah.
not cross
Yeah.
because then it gets messy.
Murky, yeah.
And that's, I think, too much for a feel-good rom-com. But I would like to believe yes, because they've been in love since childhood and they see each other as their companion. So
He would be mad at her. If it happened once, I think he would be mad at her, but he would still want her back. But if it happened multiple times, I don't think.
To me, the bigger one, because they actually sideline her in that 1 year. They show him, that girl hitting on him in the bar, all the Kapoor uncle's daughter, whatever, all those arranged marriage things he's doing. But to me, that was the one I was thinking about more, which is because the realistic version of this film, dare I use that word, is in that year, they've been through this, that's when they move on. That's when other people happen to them. That's when they probably would have dated other people. And that's when one of them quite well could have moved on.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
version of this where Imran's character actually does just settle.
Yeah.
And then she's left, or vice versa. So that to me was the one I kept thinking about, the other people.
maybe that's why they didn't show us what Deepika was doing, because that was too
Yeah.
racy to show us. Like, we
Yeah.
can't show you what.
Orgy after orgy after orgy, is it? Like,
Yeah, while he's meeting women for arranged marriage. Also, there's that weird line where relatives like, कि ये कैसी लगी? कुछ महीनों में 18 साल की भी होने वाली है. I'm like, why are you parading around?
Lilith has another very weird line. Jabi Imran is talking to her on the phone and Shahana Goswami is sitting in front of him. So she says something कि कुछ तो वो बोलती है rude, and then Lilith is like, अच्छा ये भी चुड़ैल है. ये वाली
ये
भी
भी
चुड़ैल
चुड़ैल
है.
लगती है.
Yeah, which the subtitles very cleverly उन्होंने Vixen लिखा उसके लिए. Fox भी like मेरी बंदी ने क्या किया हुआ है? चुड़ैल क्यों बुला रही है?
but what did you guys think of the ending? Because to me, like at that point, like this is when she's rushing to him, and then you sort of know where you feel on the film. You know that actually so much of it is sweet and really, really fun, but there's all this sort of weirdness in the second half where there's a reason that, in my head, it hasn't aged. It's not as much of a achievement as Ekk Tu, Ekk Tu. It's not going to be talked about and remembered.
Yes.
But there's still so much. But then, despite all of those things, there was a part of me that just completely melted at just the big romantic gesture, where like,
Yeah, I didn't melt.
yeah.
No.
I don't know. There's something about
No,
that.
I mean, then it started going into the realm of cliche, I think, for me.
Very much so.
Yeah,
And is it earned? No. Do you feel a sense of these characters and their journeys? No. Is it? That's why it's not a defining love story. But still, despite all that, and at that point, I was like, no, I know the realistic version of this film is they have broken up. It is like the breakup, that Jennifer Aniston film. They would break up. But okay, if this is the ride you're taking me on, and she sort of gets down, he plans the wedding that she turns up to, luckily.
And you can see that happening from a mile away.
Yeah.
And even a small thing like she finds out she's getting married to him by a wedding card. I'm like, you're telling me she's come all the way without knowing who he's getting
or she could have called his dad.
to.
There's
so many things that could have happened.
But then when she comes there and then she like gets on one knee, and I completely
you either buy into it or you don't.
Yeah.
It's just something that इतनी ज़्यादा realistic चीज़ें होगी कि एक तो fantasy दिखा दो भैया.
Also, this film has some really bad green screen stuff, especially when they're on the beach.
That's green screen?
There's green screen?
It's clearly green screen.
They're not on the beach.
They're not on the beach.
Shahana Goswami is in love with Imran and they're not on the beach. I didn't need this today. I was a happy guy before this conversation.
You go back and watch some of those scenes. It's clearly it's a wallpaper behind, like a Windows wallpaper. So I'm like, yeah.
And they weren't in the Gold Coast. They were like Andheri Studio.
Yes.
It sucks.
I think the music is brilliant for both these films. Vishal Shekhar for Break Ke Baad and Amit Trivedi for Ekk Tu, Ekk Tu. I think the Ekk Tu, Ekk Tu soundtrack has stood the test of time. It's more popular now, I think, than it was back then. Like Gubare and Auntie Ji songs I hear way more now.
Ahate. I love that song.
What a roadies ने और Splitsvilla ने जो इसका निचोड़ा है ये गाना मैं बता रही हूँ.
For me, I don't know why that's the song. I mean, that's the song that stuck with me in that film. That's the one you feel most. Maybe it plays at the end or whatever, and that's the one that like plays in your head on.
I think a couple of songs in Break Ke Baad, I was like, oh, this is from Break Ke Baad. Like I've heard those songs so many times. I really like that album as well. They're both very fresh, really fun. Yeah.
I like the Break Ke Baad album as well.
I think Ahate has a song I still feel it deserved a better film. But I think it could have been a part of a film that was like a proper romance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't be together because Veer Zara, whatever. Something like a situation, like a more serious situation like that.
Yeah.
Watching both these films back to back, right? There was a very specific, and I don't know if this is nostalgia talking the early 2010s aesthetic, right? Ekk Tu, Ekk Tu is under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Break Ke Baad is also not very long by Hindi film standards. Somewhere we kind of lost that along the way, right? Do you feel that? I mean, were we making more aesthetically pleasing films then than we are now?
I don't know. I think of it more in terms of the genre. It's just the lack of the love story we have today.
Right.
Aesthetics-wise, it's a good question, but then I guess you just become very aware of the 3-4 genres we're making today only, right? There's a small town sort of comedy where somebody has to teach someone something. It's a big action film.
Yeah.
With the love story thing, I don't know why they stopped. I mean, I remember talking to a couple of people from production houses and them just saying that either audiences don't want love stories or who's making them, or they're not the money spinners they used to be. But then I remember thinking it's the same Marvel problem, right? Like the superhero fatigue. Are people tired of superhero films, or are they tired of bad superhero films?
Yeah.
Because even if you look at the end of those films, the ones that come to mind there's Katti Batti, which wasn't very good. There was, what's the one Imran did with Kareena Kapoor, the second one?
Gauri Tere Pyar
Yeah,
Mein.
and then even that, like obviously these films were better than that. So is it just that like people couldn't think of interesting new angles and they all sort of died a natural death? I remember Meri Pyari Bindu wasn't well received, right? It didn't do well, and that did something different. So was it that?
And that's 2017, so it's like 7 years ago.
Yeah. So was it just saturation? When was Band Baja Barat? That was 20.
Band Baja Barat was 2008, 2007 or 8, I think. Yeah.
But yeah, was it just like people's saturation with that, or the fact is that maybe we love that genre, but eventually they ran out of ideas. They're doing the same thing from different angles.
How about lack of leading men and women who can fit into those?
It's a good question. I mean, last year we saw a bit of a resurgence, Tu Jhuti Main Makaru, Ranbir. And
yeah, that's the one. I was like, what's the closest romantic comedy that we had recently? And I thought of Tu Jhuti Main Makaru.
And Rocky Rani also.
Rocky
Rani, but it's cut out from a different cloth, I think.
Yeah.
It's not this. But Tu Jhuti Main Makaru is interesting because, again, young boy, young girl falling in love in urban India. But again, it's so different. Like the guy's still the hero there, right? He's not the green flag guy that Imran is playing in these.
Great conflict. Like I didn't love the film. It's one of those films which I didn't feel, but I kept thinking about, like, it was so interesting. Why did it this? Why did it this? But great conflict. The fact that he is the big mama's boy family thing, and she really wants to live independently. She doesn't have the best family life, and that is such a really, really strong conflict. And then the film obviously takes the illusion that it's looking at both of their sides, and eventually she has to cave, because let's face it, Love Ranjan happened. But yeah, I mean, that I thought it was such an interesting conflict.
It was, yeah.
It felt very relevant.
Do you think we appreciated Imran Khan, didn't appreciate him well enough when we had him, and now we are yearning for him
It's on
again?
you guys. I am a Gen Z. मैं तभी बच्ची थी. I didn't have the money to buy tickets, so it's on you guys. मेरी बात
For me,
पर.
I remember watching these films, and again, at that point, I'm not like breaking down performance in my
Yeah,
head.
of course, yeah,
But
yeah.
I remember enjoying these films. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed Break Ke Baad so much. I enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed Jaane Tu. And also, on hindsight, the two things I think about, because I guess we didn't know when he was going to disappear, was he stood for a kind of genre, right? You think of him as a chocolate boy. Obviously, there is the Delhi belly of the world, but the point is that that's what you think of him, man. And there's just the feeling of that really gentle screen presence, not this sort of greedy actor who wants to be the film. And those are the two things I miss. The films he stood for and just that presence he had.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I think it is a massive compliment to be able to say that, you know, we're well aware that based on the films we saw of his, there are so many shortcomings as an actor.
Right.
But I would look forward to something else he did.
How would you guys react if you found out he signed the next Sandeep Reddy Vanga film?
Based on what you said about believing the honesty of an actor, you know, I'm going to say he wouldn't. That is my that's my belief.
Yeah.
I could be Delulu, but I believe he would say no.
Do you sense a comeback on the horizon for him?
There's been a lot of talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and they've played around,
Yeah.
with that idea.
So I don't know if he is, but let me put it this way. If he is, there's been so much talk about him recently for good reason. He put up this very sweet Instagram post with his memory about each
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
He gave a couple of interviews recently. And so, like, if he was, he's doing a great sort of PR run up to
Correct.
it. But, I mean, I'd love to see him today. I don't know.
In a mature love story.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know in what. I mean, I'd love to hear from you guys what
Not
you'd want
in
to
the
see.
YRF spyverse.
No. I mean, kidnapped daughters enough. But, what would you guys want to see him?
I think him with Kareena Kapoor again would just be so good.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I was still thinking like he's much older now, so it would be interesting to see him take a little more mature love story.
But would you want to see
love-
something radically different, like the kind of role you'd never imagine him in? Or, I mean, it would be very interesting for me to watch someone like Shakun kind of did in Ekk Tu, like, to use the Imran image in sort of a Kapoor and Sons kind of thing, where like it is in that world, but like you said, maybe a mature love story, maybe he's a father, maybe something to that effect.
Yeah,
And
something
I'm
like that.
Curious to know, because I don't know the details, but he's clearly experienced a lot of life. He's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to know what kind of actor he is.
Okay, cool. Okay, so before we go to the categories, so which one of the two do you think is a superior film? Ek Mein aur Ekk Tu or Break Ke Baad?
I think it's very hard to make it has to be Ekk Tu. You know, it's very hard to
And
argue.
is it specifically because of the ending?
It is because of how I think a big way because the ending, but it's because of, again, I think it has aged to my memory of what it was, which is something truly different, something using that big love story formula to push it in a different direction, absolutely because of the ending. But even if you were to remove the ending,
Right.
there is something about the treatment of that film, the fact that everyone wasn't sort of, there was a subtlety of it, it wasn't that big grand melodrama thing, you know, his entire sort of, it was a very honest coming of age arc, not in a drastic radical way. He's not off sort of becoming a rock star. How he deals with his parents, it's not like something dramatic or a showdown. So yeah, there was something very honest, sincere and refreshing about the treatment, even if you take the ending away.
Okay.
But with that ending, yeah, the fact that we had a romantic friendship film,
Okay.
a friendship that was romanticized, I think that is the case. But I still think Break Ke Baad has aged well as just fine. Yes, it's scattered and yes, it's uneven. But I just want to feel something that, you know, what we look for in a comfort watch rom-com. I think that it still ticks that box.
Okay. Would you want to pick one over the other between Ek Mein aur Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad?
I think, man, it's very difficult. See, Break Ke Baad is a more entertaining film,
Okay.
I felt. But Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu has aged well, I feel.
Interesting.
And the parts, things that haven't aged well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's do the categories.
Yeah.
Let's start with you. So, in both of them, in Ek Mein aur Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad, what has aged well and
So
what hasn't?
for Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu, I have a point.
Yeah.
Remember that scene जब ही बोमन ईरानी इमरान खान को खींच के लेके जा रहा होता है. So he tells him, Japanese ने तुम्हें जॉब नहीं दिया, हमने उन्हें अपना नौकर बना दिया. That hasn't aged well. Also the whole molesting, it hasn't aged well.
Oh.
इमरान खान को वो जो उसकी वाइफ ऐसे हाथ वाथ डालती है, उसको बम को पकड़ती है.
That's okay. I mean, that's just a desperate wife, right? Trying to get some action.
But then
She's hitting on a younger
it's a
person.
funny scene. It is like shown as a funny scene. So
But it's, I think you're right, but I'm still going to argue against it like an idiot. It's still, it's dealt with dramatically. In the end, you know, the way he announces it and stuff, it is, there's some weird narrative point he's trying to make about, like, you know, how his dad knows, Bamna Rani sees him and he says, you know, don't say anything. But yes, you're right. It is played for humor, so that you can't deny that.
So I mean, if it was happening,
But just because the thing is in the film doesn't make it problematic, right? There is enough reasoning to it.
I mean,
That this That's okay. That this Ram Kapoor character who shows to be this alpha male, he's actually not been able to satisfy his own wife. That's why she's gone
But
on.
she keeps messing with Imran Khan, no? Like
Again,
she's
because there is a
putting this-
reasoning to it, right?
I know reasoning है, but like थोड़ा वो funny way में I feel like if like Ram Kapoor was doing that to a girl, I think that would वो same ऐसे funny way में नहीं दिखाते. So just
Correct.
that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if roles were reversed, you'd be uncomfortable with
Yeah.
the girls.
Exactly. Yeah.
So these are things that haven't aged well.
What
Yeah,
has
this,
aged well?
What has aged well about Ekk Tu और Ekk Tu?
Either, both.
About Ekk Tu और Ekk Tu, I think the fact that Kareena Kapoor, matlab she was very clear, like you said, if you watch the movie for the second time, knowing what happens in the end, Kareena Kapoor is acting like a friend, and we rarely get to see proper friendships between two protagonists. It's always लड़का और लड़की कभी दोस्त नहीं हो सकते, or like it's even if they are just friends, then it's very surface level friendship. You don't get to see like you can actually imagine करीना और ये एक दूसरे को ब्रो भी बुलाते होंगे रिलेशनशिप में कि अरे भाई नहीं है क्या, भाई नहीं क्या, like that kind of a relationship.
It also helped because, like, again, I don't mean this in a mean way, they don't have the greatest chemistry on screen, right? Are you like, oh my god, these people
Yeah, actually that's the other thing. I buy more Deepika Imran chemistry than
exactly,
Kareena
and
Imran.
that again, it works. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it works because when you see them as friends, you'll buy it.
Yeah.
But it literally, it's like the film saying, I'm putting them together. You've been conditioned to imagining them together, and I'm making a case for why that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why the lack of chemistry really worked. Can I just add 2 points
Yes,
based
please.
on yours? So the other thing I just add, Ekk Tu, is in defense of the quiet coming of age film. Again, the fact that what really changes from him beginning to middle, he's confronted his parents, he's decided to live life on his own terms, he's wears looser shirts, he decides to cut loose, but he's not, there's no dramatic transformation, he's made a new friend, but there's no sort of grand gesture kind of thing, which I thought was quite wonderful. Like, it really is very internally, it's just somebody coming to terms with their stuff. And the other thing about Break Ke Baad, which is one of the reasons I think that the Alia's character works when it works, is Deepika. I really like that performance.
Right, yeah.
It's very easy for that, again, to fall flat, especially when at least half the film is yours. It's very rare you get a rom-com where both characters are on equal footing.
Yeah.
And I just thought she was so charming. And
Okay, here's a point. Do you think the Imran character is playing a bichara in both films? Like he's supposed to play the oh poor guy. I wish he gets the girl. Is that what it's trying to elicit from us?
that's a good question. I feel that in Ekk Tu because he's clearly the victim there, right? He's a victim of his parents. He's a victim of you deserve better for him. And then there is the point of like Kareena saves him, but then is he being led on and all that kind of stuff. But what a Break Ke Baad tries to do, and maybe doesn't do it that successfully, is it tries to tell us that they both had issues in the relationship. It's very easy, and the film frequently does it. It frames Alia, Deepika's character, as the problem, the selfish, all that kind of stuff. But it sort of does quietly also tell you that he doesn't have a life outside of her. Their relationship is not doomed to fail, but there were a lot of issues with it. Also because she was his whole world, and he needed to have more for himself. And so it tries to tell you that actually there was a lot he needed to do. So it wasn't just one-sided, even though sometimes it's hard to see that in the film. That actually, it's not just her. It's not her always at fault.
Yeah.
So I think Ekk Tu does it more. So that he is that sort of repressed person who really just deserves to like just breathe out.
Okay. One last thing about about Break Ke Baad. I also like the little touch that her Masi living in Australia is more conservative than her mother in India. I thought that was a really
I
nice
completely
thing.
forgot about that. Which is just accurate representation of your relatives living in all these countries because उनका सोच अभी भी मतलब वो जहाँ जिस टाइम पे इंडिया से निकले थे उनका सोच अभी भी उधर ही फंसा हुआ है, which is so true.
I also love that Alia, Deepika's character, doesn't fight. She puts up with it, and then she just leaves. And I was like, that's like, that's exactly what she would do,
Yeah.
Why should I waste my energy? I'm leaving, bro. You deal with your thing. I'm out. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going to be impulsive and annoyed, and I'm not, what's the point? Like, and I was like, it was very in character.
That actually helps her case even better. Like the fact that she left randomly कि भाई वो randomly अनजान देश में अगर इस सोच से बचने के लिए randomly बाहर जा सकती है तो of course उसके boyfriend को 10 साल पुराने boyfriend को छोड़ेगी. So that makes sense.
Okay, so we usually do a double feature thing, but here we already discussing 2 films. So if you had to add a third film,
Jaane to.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because if you're doing an Imran marathon, again, they all exist in the same world. But again, that is a very sweet film. My memory of it, it does the whole sort of, love, friendship thing again, but in a very sort of fresh, new way. And it might be, in terms of just making me feel and feeling for them, rooting for the couple, obviously probably does more than any of these films. So in terms of a by the book love story that really makes you feel and makes you root for them, And again, it's similar enough. Again, coming of age and love story, but also different enough that I think that's the absolute no-brainer.
Okay.
If you're going to do a trilogy.
Also, जाने तुझे जाने ना में भी there is a very similar break के बाद-ish vibe to it, because remember that scene where Aditi as in Genelia D'Souza, she says कि अरे यार, she's talking to her friend, right, कि यार ये जय कितना busy हो गया है जब से girlfriend आ गई है, इतना पूरा टाइम उसी को चिपका रहता है, and she's like जय पहले से ऐसा था, the only difference is that earlier you used to be that person for him.
Yeah.
And then that is when she realizes that how much I need Jay in my life. She like same with Deepika also, na, she was dependent on him.
Correct, yeah.
So, but yeah.
If you had to add a third film to
Third film. And I don't want to say
Marathon.
Jaane Tu Jaane Na because you already said it. But I actually didn't. You go first.
Okay, I would like to add another rom-com from around the same time, which is Socha Na Tha.
Nice.
With Abhay Deol and Aisha Takya, which was
Imtiaz
Imtiaz
Ali's
Ali's first film. Again, I think it dares to be it dares to go against the convention of boy meets girl, fall in love, and the rest follows. It actually boy meet girl, say no to each other, and then again fall in love with each other. So I think that's a pretty sweet film to go along with it, with these two.
I think I would go with Tu Jhooti Main Makkar, just so that you know that what a actual rom-com should look like and what it shouldn't look like.
You didn't like Tu Jhooti Main Makkar?
I mean,
I thought it was fun.
The ending, I did not like the ending. And also, like, now that I watched these two films, I had liked it back then, Tu Jhooti Main Makkar, when I watched it for the first time. But in retrospect, I realized that, again, that film was just about him.
It was.
It was completely about him. Shraddha Kapoor, she's a good actor, dude. Like, you can't snatch that away from her.
And I do think that's her best performance.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, also, I say that as someone, I don't think she's given many good performances, but I really do think that she was very good in that film. And also, I didn't think Love Ranjan was capable of a really interesting, solid female character. And you're rooting for her. But to your point, that entire film was as if Ranbir's character made the film about their love story. You know, it's again his perspective.
Exactly. Even though Love Ranjan, as compared to his other films, I wasn't expecting it to be as good, which is why I liked it so much, because I was like, acha, ye pyar ka panchnama nahi hai. You have made like a flawed female character, but yet there is no judgment on her.
But eventually there is, right? Because she caves and she has to follow his big Indian family.
Yeah.
True. Cool.
What was that about?
That was, I just wanted one title and you guys are giving a different podcast.
No, I had a point which I've forgotten now, so screw it. Okay, Suchin, so on a hazard age well rating scale of 1 to 10, if you had to rate both these films, Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu and Break Ke Baad, 1 being it hasn't aged well at all and 10 being it's aged, it gets better with every viewing, how much would you rate?
Not in terms of quality, but how well it's aged. If I have to rate it, Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu, I would say a 7.5.
Okay.
And Break Ke Baad probably 6.5.
Okay, cool.
It's probably more of a 6, but I still have a soft corner for that film.
Okay. 6.5 and 7.5. Yeah. Okay, not bad. Ujita, for you?
Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu would be 8, but Break Ke Baad would be, I think 7. It's not as bad, matlab.
Yeah.
It has aged well, but yeah.
Cool. For me, Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu 8 and Break Ke Baad would be a solid 6. I think both of them have pros and cons, but Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu I think holds up a little better. Also, it doesn't have green screen. They actually went to Vegas to shoot.
You're breaking this movie for me.
But Break Ke Baad, I feel like it could have been a nice start of, exploring flawed female characters and, adding more layers to them. In terms of that, I think it took a giant leap and that needs to be appreciated. It's just one of those things.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we didn't get to see more of it in the coming years. But I haven't given up hope. I'm
sure Suchin has examples because you watch like a ton of stuff, so I'm sure.
Flawed female characters.
Yeah, I think you see it a lot more in streaming shows.
If you just look at female characters with agency, stronger female characters, female characters as protagonists.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean streaming is comparatively compared to films, it's far better.
All right, those were our ratings. Pretty high. I think both of the films are pretty enjoyable. I think
0.5 calculate नहीं कर सकता ना. 0.5 कितना हुआ है total?
Just use a calculator and average it out. But let's do the alternate ending segment right now. Alright, so this is the alternate ending segment where we think up another ending than the way the film originally ended, or we pitch a sequel to either of these films. So, Suchin, if Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu, or a movie we've said so many good things about the ending, if you had to end Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu or Break ke baad differently, how would you go for
Ekk Mein aur Ekk Tu, it would be the same ending changed by 8%. It would be without backtracking on the idea of, it wouldn't be Imran's voiceover saying, I'm still holding out hope.
Right.
It'll really give us that sense of that scene that comes early in the film where she's coaching him through a date, where you really see them as platonic friends. Something to that effect, where it really sees, and it underlines that they are friends. This always was about friendship, without any sort of that stuff. With Break Ke Baad, I thought of two. One was the hurtful one, which I think it's a realistic ending, but I don't want this to be the end. But the fact is, I think they would break up. After that, they would grow apart. Or the more hopeful, interesting one, which I still feel like would be interesting, is they grow apart not for 1 year, for years. They maybe they don't see each other for a while, and one day, 2-3 years later, after they're drastically different people, they reconnect, right? And then maybe they both happen to be single. And then it's that whole thing of we have the baggage, we have the shared history, but maybe we are in a different place. Then that whole idea it's trying to sell, we are Momo Chome, or that would be interesting. Like not bumping into each other, but that I thought would really sell that idea, and I would be able to buy their happily ever after a lot more that way.
Okay.
But yeah, those were my.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I have an alternate ending for Break Ke Baad. Okay. So they get married. Okay, the marriage happens. Everybody dancing, whatever. Okay. Cut to the
Shahana Goswami.
No, wait. I'm getting there. The father comes. The Ranveer father comes. Like, तुम्हारी शादी हो गई है. ये लो तुम्हारा gift. तुम Mauritius जा रहे हो honeymoon पे. Okay. Like, thank you, Dad. Thank you so much. Cut to they're going for the honeymoon. They land on the Mauritius airport. Okay. They're the happy couple, they're lovey-dovey, newly married couple, and Deepika's like, I'm really hungry, can you get me something to eat? Like, don't worry, babe. Goes to the coffee shop, like, can I have a coffee and a bagel? Like, sure. Gives the credit card to the guy. Sorry, sir, your card is declined. What are you saying? Why would the card be declined? Sorry, sir, it's not accepting the card. Okay, Deepika gives her card. Like, babe, the card's not working. Sorry, ma'am, your card is also declined. What is happening? Okay, we zoom out. Okay, we cut to Australia. We see Shahana Goswami and Yudi were scamsters all along, and they have actually, through voracious means, vicarious means, I don't know why I said voracious, vicarious means, was a whole scheme for them to get the wealth of of Imran and Alia, of Deepika. And they were scamsters, and now
this ending was
they are stuck. Now they are stuck in Mauritius without any money, and they have nowhere to go. And the last shot is
a survival thriller. What is happening?
Shahana and Yudi like, let's get on to the next couple that we're gonna rob.
This ending was so problematic that you accidentally called him Ranbir. That's how.
So Break Ke
The
Baad is
Freudian
actually
slip was too apparent
Officially
here.
out of the headspace of these films, I was like, what did I watch?
Yeah.
Did I get it? Is it a thriller?
Yeah.
Anyway, Urjita, do you have an alternate? Can you
But,
beat this alternate ending that I
I
have?
want to beat it up. I really do. But I think in Break Ke Baad, I feel they should not get back together. Maybe like they can stay friends. And if they have to get back together, then give me a strong enough... Show me Deepika's love for Imran in a better way. Because I did not buy whatever she felt for him. I still felt that it was just
too
FOMO.
hard a turn. For
It
me
was
at
just
least.
FOMO, I feel, on her part. कि she's like, ये मेरा बंदा है, तू ऐसे कैसे किसी और से शादी कर सकता है. Like, I still bought it when Konkana did it in Life in a Metro.
Yeah.
When because it's like, she did not have the chance to think whether she wants to be with him or not. So, for her, it felt like, okay, this makes more sense. Because she's already very reserved. Now she's like, नहीं ये किसी और से शादी नहीं कर सकता. Then it was funny, it was cute. I completely...
She's also getting older in that film. That's also
yes.
also a plot
so
point.
There it made sense, but here it didn't make sense at all.
My prediction, now that you've said that, of both those characters, I think what would have happened in real life is that when they went to Australia, post breakup or whatever, I think Deepika would have done the casual dating thing just because she's in that zone. I'm in college experience, I want to find myself acting, just not...
Yeah.
And then that would have obviously maybe hurt his feelings or whatever, and he'd be holding on to, typical, like holding on to all hope. And eventually when he finally does move on, and then, he would then, like those girls who were hitting on him, he would actually dive into a very serious relationship after that.
Yeah.
And then maybe she resurfaces, maybe she misses him and realizes actually, but then it's too late because because I feel like he's the kind of guy who'd jump into the next form of commitment.
Yeah.
And she would be busy finding herself, and when she finally maybe it clicks to her that she wants to go back to or whatever, then
That was the Ranveer Deepika episode of Coffee with Karan that you just described.
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
On that note.
How many things are we plugging? Like,
On that note, we've come to the end of this episode. Suchin, thank you so much for
This was really
gracing
fun.
us with your presence a second time. Before we go, anything you want to plug? Where can people find your writing? Anything? Where can people watch you online? Please tell us.
So, on Film Companion, on our YouTube channel Reviews and More, where I review all of the Hindi streaming shows. And on Twitter at Suchin505 if you want to see me comment on random stuff.
Okay. And should we talk about your podcast, Streaming with Suchin?
So I also have my own podcast. It's called The Streaming Show, which is when I sort of interview actors.
It's not called Streaming with Suchin. I take that back. Okay,
sorry. It's called The Streaming Show podcast.
Okay.
That is my own podcast where I sort of cover the world of streaming, where I sort of talk to actors and filmmakers and stuff about how streaming has just completely changed the landscape. Spoke to a couple of platform heads. So yes, that is The Streaming Show. And on Film Companion, where I review, it's on the Film Companion YouTube channel.
All right, cool. So this is not connected to our episode, but what is your, like, in a nutshell, we have so much, like, for example, Monkey Man was let go of Netflix because they were a little scared that they...
Apparently,
So how do you see the streaming landscape? Do you still think, despite all of that, we have brave stories and unique stories being told?
You're talking about the censorship stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's getting so far. Sometimes I feel like the fact that we've made it so far in one piece is a miracle, because like year after year, it's getting increasingly sort of more unsettling. There's more like controversies. The amount of court cases that the platforms have against them that we don't even know about is insane. The ridiculousness of it, the censorship, they keep worsening and tightening the censorship laws. So I don't know. I really don't know. And honestly, there are people whose full-time job it is within these platforms to predict outrage.
Right.
And literally, it's insane. It's literally, and it's such a strange job. They literally watch to trying to predict what could people lose their shit over, and you can't even do that. So I really don't know. I mean, maybe we should just be grateful that it is the way it is, and I hope it stays that way. But I know it's very tough for them.
Okay.
And I'm the Monkey Man thing. Yes, that is what the reporting was. I don't know how true it is, but I won't be surprised. But yeah, I mean, and then speaking selfishly, I just want us to be able to watch that film in India.
Correct. Yeah.
So if it gets a theatrical release, are we going to be able to watch the uncut Monkey Man?
Yeah.
But
the last thing you saw on streaming that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
I think for me, at least from the shows I review, I'll make two recommendations. Mine was probably Killer Soup, which is I thought it was a great start of the year. It's Manoj Bajpayee, it's Kankana Singh Sharma, Abhishek Chaubey. It's like a really delicious dark comedy. We really rarely do dark comedy. We rarely do it well. This was very wacky, weird, outrageous, very distinctive. And I thought I was like, this is a great start to the year. On a non-Hindi front, there's a show on Netflix which I strongly recommend called Blue Eye Samurai. For anyone who
so good.
loves sort of animation, it's not exactly anime, but it's sort of Americanized animation, and it is this insane revenge story that's sort of heavy and violent, and it's sort of Game of Thrones set in sort of Japan, that whole world, and it's very, very cool as like a fun action film, but it's also like a very powerful, very dramatic revenge story, and it's just excellent storytelling. So I think that's the other one.
And the violence is cartoonish, so you can swallow it.
But it's also very violent, but it goes for it.
Don't make that. What I meant was it goes down easier because it's cartoon. Sorry.
I was like, what's going down? Well, I mean, there are a lot of body parts. A lot of
sex also.
Yes.
I'm surprised.
Cartoon sex, nudity. Not very common.
I think those are the two big recommendations.
Those are great recommendations. Urjita, where can people follow you? Anything you want to plug?
You guys can subscribe to my YouTube channel @UrjitaVani, and new video I think ab tak aa gayi hogi. And also follow me on Instagram @UrjitaVani, and I might have also started doing my 1-hour shows by now. Yeah.
Okay.
So please come. Hey, Anika. Thank you.
Nice. And you can follow me on Twitter @AbbasMomin and AbbasMomin88 on Instagram. I'm not doing any 1-hour shows.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But this show ran for almost an hour 45 minutes. So this is where I'm spending my energy. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. Once again, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the IVM Pop channel. Check out the other shows that are happening here. And share this episode with anyone who you think will enjoy it. Any Imran fans, any Suchin fans that you know. Please go ahead and share it with them.
How dare you put me in that category? I'm offended as an Imran fan. How dare you?
And we will see you next week with a new movie and a new guest. Till then, bye-bye.
IVM.